Hello everyone, I'm Teresa and this is the first video from the Tarot series. Welcome to the introductory video for my new series here on the channel. If you clicked on this video in hopes to learn more about the art that is tarot reading, then sit back and maybe get a piece of paper to take notes if you want. On this new set of videos, I'll share with you knowledge about the tarot, the history, the card meanings, a few spreads you can use, and so on. I'll explore a bit of everything. After much consideration, I decided to start 2021 with a different type of videos, mostly because the past year forced me to deeply explore my own self, my subconscious, and to delve more into things that I had long left behind. But I can tell my story on another video. For this first video, I'll start by sharing with you some bits of knowledge about the history of tarot, how it came to be, and how it evolved into the decks that we are familiar with today, like this one. So, what is tarot? To make it simple, tarot is basically a deck, like this one, with 78 cards divided into two parts, the major arcana with 22 cards and the minor arcana with 56 cards. These 56 cards are then subdivided into 4 different suits. Every card has a special meaning or message to deliver, and they can be read differently depending if it's drawn upright or upside down. It is a deck most commonly used for divination purposes, for fortune-telling. I, however, don't really use tarot as a fortune-telling instrument, as I don't believe in such. I personally feel that the fortune-telling approach is one that can be dangerous and lead to false expectations, which can go wrong in many ways. Having a tarot reading telling you that you will meet the love of your life or that you'll get that promotion you've been wanting may make you wait for those things to fall into your lap instead of really investing in yourself and working for them to happen. It can lead to the despair of waiting for things that will never be. So, on my experience, and take it with a grain of salt because we are all different, okay, I see tarot as a tool for our own development, a tool to empower us, to guide us in a world filled with many paths. Try to think of tarot as a way to seek counsel, like we would seek advice from a close friend or parents, but instead of having a human sharing his life experience with us, we have a deck of archetypes and symbology to help us. Tarot is a good tool to look into your subconscious and make you dive into yourself. It will help you shed a light into problems you haven't been able to resolve, or it will simply help you find other solutions you wouldn't think of. More often than not, tarot is associated with paganism, with neo-pagan or Wiccan beliefs and faiths. But rest assured, it does not come from any of these, nor do you need to follow any specific religious faith in order to study, to learn, or read the tarot. People all over the world with different religions, or none at all, read tarot. It's not exclusive to any faith. It's even used in the fields of psychology, mental health, therapy, and so forth. So never let anyone stop or forbid you to explore tarot because you don't follow a certain creed. Now, to the history part of this. I like to know where things come from and how they came to be, so I am able to better understand them. So on this first video, I'll do a quick and simple historical recap. Even though nowadays the popular use of tarot is for fortune-telling, it didn't really start that way. We'd have to go back to the year 618 to find records of decks of playing cards in China. But these were cards created for games and fun and not for divination or fortune-telling. Merchants and tradings eventually made the playing cards reach Islamic countries. It is believed that a deck of these cards created in Egypt already showed signs of having the same foundations as the modern-day decks, consisting in cards with 4 different suits: the polo sticks, the cups, the swords, and the coins, which are believed to be the interests and hobbies of the aristocracy of that time. These decks eventually made their way into Europe and were obviously adapted from the Asian mythical references to ones more similar to that time and place. And with this, we finally reach Italy, around the year 1440, the 15th century, where we have evidences of decks much similar to the ones we have today, with 78 cards split into 2 sections: the major arcana, also called the triumph cards or trionfi, and the minor arcana, which consisted on the already popular 56 playing cards from aces to tens, and then the court cards. These first documented tarot decks show up in Italian cities like Florence, Milan, Bologna, and during the 15th century, tarot cards were used to play games, but around the 18th century, cartomancy, or fortune-telling through cards, was really popular. So it's no surprise that tarot decks eventually shifted from being used for games to being used for divination purposes. The oldest tarot cards that made it to today's days and age are the Visconti Sforza tarot decks that were painted on the 15th century. There are 15 decks that survived the trials of time, but none of them are actually complete. They were used to play and not for divination purposes, and were commissioned by Filippo Maria Visconti, Duke of Milan, and by his son-in-law Francesco Sforza. Hence the name Visconti Sforza given to these decks. Initially, the tarot cards were hand-painted, so they took a long time and some money to be created, so we assume there weren't many decks being created around that time. Only after the invention of the printing press that allowed a faster and cheaper way to create new decks did the tarot expand to other countries, firstly going to France and Switzerland. During this time, the popular tarot was the tarot of Marseille's design, which is still recreated and used till this day. During this time, tarot cards were used for playing the tarot game, which had variations of rules depending on the region and deck, since it took on several adaptations. It was during the 18th century that a revival of the tarot happened and made it a really popular game in Europe, and it ended up spreading to most countries, except for the Iberian Peninsula, Portugal and Spain, to Ireland and Britain and the Balkans. It is also during this time that the first evidences of the tarot being used for cartomancy show up, gaining popularity in Paris by the hands of Antoine Cote and Jean-Baptiste Aliette, with the Tarot of Marseille. This deck dropped in popularity within the gaming community as it shifted popularity towards the Tarot Nouveau, leaving room for the Tarot of Marseille to be used by cartomancers and divinators. Jean-Baptiste Aliette, known as Eteia, was an occultist that wrote a lot about cartomancy, and his writings came to influence later tarot practices. He was also the first to publish a tarot deck only for occult purposes, and this was around 1789, and had themes based on ancient Egypt. Similar to the current tarot, this deck had 78 cards again, divided by the 2 arcanas, the major and the minor, but it had clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds for suits. He also wrote about the Book of Thoth, the Egyptian god of knowledge and writing, and much of Eteia's writings on the Book of Thoth was also later applied to modern tarots. A bit later, in 1850, Alphonse Louis Constant, under the pseudonym of Helipas Levi, gave the Marseille Tarot interpretation using the structure of the Hermetic Kabbalah. This interpretation was taken by the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and made widely popular. Other schools of thought embraced the tarot, and so many artists took it as influence. Moving forward to 1909, the occultist Arthur Edward Waite published his version and interpretation of the tarot, with lovely illustrations of Pamela Smith. This deck is widely known as the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Olivia just decided to interrupt me and show up, so there she is. This deck had the root of its symbolism in Neoplatonism, but it includes a wide range of influences and symbolism from other sources, such as Greek, Roman, and Egyptian mythology, astrology, and Hermetic and Jewish Kabbalahs. I would say that the writer Waite is the most famous deck ever printed, and that most decks follow its system and imagery. Even decks of completely different teams try to follow the guidelines of Pamela Smith's illustrations. From then to today, we can find an almost infinite amount of interpretations and versions of the tarot, versions that were adapted to fit cultural references, local mythologies, or just certain themes to draw in different crowds. To have great knowledge foundations and yet use to read the tarot by intuition without needing to constantly look into the booklet, there is nothing better than start with the basics and make that knowledge rock solid. So, for the following videos of the series, I'll follow the Rider Waite Smith deck and share with all of you how to properly read this type of deck, at least how I do it and how I learned it. The Rider-Waite is the best deck to start learning tarot from, even if the decks with dogs or cats look more visually appealing to you, but I'll explore that later. It's all for this video. I hope you have enjoyed this little time travel into tarot history. As always, my social media links are down below on the description box, where you can follow my life's journey or support it by offering me a coffee on Ko-fi. See you soon!